the urban nightscape of like this song and how it feels. You called it nocturnal, and I think
Yeah.
that's such a beautiful word to describe a song. Hey, everybody out there, welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy, it's John, and we are here to discuss some music, believe it or not. And John, you're going to be offering up something for me to go off and listen to, hopefully for my enjoyment and for the audience at large out there. What have you got in your holster?
So we've got a track from a band we have visited before, and that band is Massive Attack.
Okay, cool. Good. I'm glad to get back to these guys. I've always liked what I've heard so far to varying degrees, some tracks more than others, but I've never disliked anything I've heard from them. And I really love the kind of like attitude and mood to their stuff. So this will be cool to go off and listen to. What's the track?
The track is called Safe from Harm.
Okay, so we're going from protection to safe from harm. Is there a theme here?
I'm always thinking.
Yeah, okay. Right. Yeah, let me go off and
And of
give
course, their little known follow up is "You fucked now." Um,
some things progress, huh? Oh goodness. Things took a turn somewhere after Safe from Harm. But yeah, let me go give this a listen. I will come back and let you guys and you know what I think of the tune. Beginning is reminds me so much of a song that I'm sure came after this, but a song by a band called 311 called Beautiful Disaster. It's got that same sort of piccolo snare kind of hit to it, and that driving bass line. Yeah, this is really cool. I mean, with that much bass, you're going to get my attention out of the gate for sure. You got plenty of time to see where this takes us, though, and knowing Massive Attack, they are going to take us somewhere.
Midnight rockers, city slickers, gunmen and maniacs, all featured on the freak show, and I can't do nothing about that. No. But if you heard what's mine, I'll sure as hell retaliate. You can free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight. You can free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight.
Serious, infectious, and dangerous. Friends and enemies, I find us contagious. I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see me looking back at you.
Lucky dipper.
Loved that. Love that so much. I want to take it back. Um, Sounds like a little bit of guitar noodling, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe if it's a facsimile of a guitar sound, you know, created on another instrument, some sort of, you know. synth instrument or something like that, but it sounds like guitar and it sounds lovely.
Dangerous. Friends and enemies, I find us contagious. I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see me looking back at you.
Lucky dippers, crazy chances, seems to be moving fast. What happened to the niceties of my childhood days? Well, I can't do nothing about that, no. But if your heart was mine, I'll sure as hell retaliate.
I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see me looking back at
Can
you.
free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight. You can free the
That
world,
bass.
you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight.
Serious, infectious, and dangerous. Friends and enemies, I find us contagious. And they spread it through your system like a virus. Yes, the trouble in the animation anxious. I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see me looking back at you. I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see me looking back at you.
But if your heart was mine, I'll sure as hell retaliate. You can free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight. You can free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight.
These like clipped beacons. Good God, the song's almost over. These like clipped like sonar or like beacon sounds that are being sent out. I love that. I love that. I know we're almost over, but I want to take it back just so I can hear that a little bit more. We won't go too far back. There we go. Yeah, that's it's something that's really great about the song is how they're taking these sounds and just manipulating them no matter what they are, whether it's the male singer's voice or, that really interesting like guitar-y type stuff that's going on. This sound now, it's just a lot of playing with creating sounds and then playing with those sounds within the sort of parameters of the song. And yeah, it's a joy to listen to. It's a real mood piece. You can just kind of let your mind melt a little bit to it. Yeah, really, really enjoy this. Ah, that was good. I don't think it went back, but hey, you know what? I can go back and listen to the song several times, and I'm sure I will. Yeah, this is one of my I liked all the Massive Attack that I've heard on this channel to this point. But this one has intrigued me a bit more than I think the last one. To take nothing away from it, but yeah, This is honestly the name. God, what was the last one called? Protection or something like? Yeah, this sort of has the name Safe from Harm. Kind of dovetails into that really well. But yeah, this is good stuff. Love to learn more about this song from John. I know that sometimes they have a rotating cast of people who provide vocals on their tracks. I'm wondering if this is another one of those instances. But there's only one way to find out that information, and I'm sure plenty more, and that's to get back to John. So let's do just that.
So you're back, and it appears you're safe from harm for now.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Wait till that next track you talked about comes around, and then we'll see what kind of state I'm in after listening to it. This I really, really, really like this. We need, and I know we've talked about this idea of like when a song reminds you of another song, but when a song reminds you of another song that doesn't really sound anything like the song you're listening to, you and I have both experienced that, and we need to come up with a term from that once and for all because the probably the first 8 seconds of this song with the bass and the piccolo snare hits being used really reminded me of the beginning of a song called Beautiful Disaster by a band named 311, which is like this SoCal rock outfit that has nothing to do with this kind of stuff. But it's just that for a glimpse, I was like, whoa, this is really, really weird that it's taking me there. And I know this precedes it and all that stuff, so we don't need to get into that. But it's just funny how music can do that to you. We've talked about how it can take you places, how it can remind you of stuff that is nowhere near the same. But it just that's how the mind works, I suppose.
Well, there's
But
obviously there's French terms for this sort of recognition, deja vu, etc. And of course, there's a lovely one, which is jamais vu, which means never seen.
yeah. And nothing alike. You could tag on to the end of that as well. But yeah, that there are these so obviously the bass and the drums have got me at this point. And you get this light synth key, these keys that come in that are sustained, and they create so much room in the song juxtaposed to that tight movement of the bass and the drums, and it almost changes the soundscape to panoramic. And from that moment, those keys, like just from that moment, those keys enter the whole kind of what you're looking at or how you're looking at it shifts in its lens, I guess. And there are these judiciously used scratches that pepper in this nice frictious element to the song. That's this nice almost percussive variant used throughout, but again judiciously. So it's not just like you're not getting hit over the head with it. And something that I've come to expect from Massive Attack tracks, there's this like haunting vocal element to the song where usually two singers, often a female and a male voice, they use those vocals commingle together in such a way that teeters between the sultry and seductive sound and an almost eerie mysticism as well. So it kind of toes this line that I didn't even know existed between these two disparate kind of sounds. And I think that often begs for the listener's attention. It's really, really an intriguing element to a lot of their stuff. And it only adds to that mood that I was talking about, that a lot of it's just these songs are so mood inducing or evocative that element only further enhances that whole experience. Um, Around the 135 mark, we get some really great but brief guitar sound. And it's got this really interesting effect on it that couples some interesting distortion. I mean, it's not ham-handed distortion here. This isn't big muff 90s distortion, but it's an interesting variant of distortion
Yeah.
that has this almost rubber band like a thicker rubber band like thrumming to the like it's not there's twang and then there's twang, and this was more twang to it. And I really really like that. It's got this really cool, just the overall tone to it was really interesting to me. And then we get this spoken word quasi rap bit again, not something foreign to an experience I've had listening to Massive Attack. And this comes from the male singer, and this adds another layer to what the vocals provide in the song. So it's not just this beautiful woman's voice, or this woman's beautiful voice, I should say. I have no idea what she looks like, but it's just an interesting dynamic in play. So it's not only male versus female vocals; it's the female's vocals and how she delivers them, and the male's vocals and how he delivers them, and they're disparate and different, and yet they work. And I really really like that. And this is also followed by some more fun guitar work after that bit. And every so often there is this very subtle, and I'm going to say horn-like popping in the mix. And I can't figure out what it is, if it's fabricated, like replica of horn sounds, or if it's the real deal. But it's like the musical version of Where's Waldo, or what do you guys call Waldo over there? I know Wally or something.
Why?
Yeah, yes. Where when it appears, it's like an epiphany. Like you have to sift in order to find it. You have to comb through the sounds to notice it when it's there, but it's just barely there. And I like that. I also like how at times the male vocal track is mixed like a DJ scratching the record. So
Yeah.
you hear his I was looking at you, and you're like, and it plays with that opening line to each one of his verses every now and again, not every single one of them, but you peppers that in there. So you not only get the natural record scratch sound from time to time, but you get the scratching of the vocal track as well, which is really, really kind of a cool element that they use. And during the last like 25 seconds or so of the track, they utilize this almost digital beacon signal that's this kind of that kind of sounds off, and perhaps even like sonar. And I think you were talking about this recently in a song we did where you compared it to like a small underwater vessel that would send signals
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
You get there's some of that sound to it, ironically, because we just talked about that. um and I don't know, there's something intriguing about the sound to it, because usually when you hear it, it's just this direct quarter beat or half beat note, and this is more melodic in how they use it. Like it's not just this pulsating sound,
Yeah.
it's played with more, and I like the melody to it because it's a sound you don't associate with any sort of melodic sound to it, but here we have that. And I just thought it was a really, really cool addition to the song. And as simple as that is, that sound, found it really intriguing. A lot of the same thing with the horns. They were simple, but they were buried, and it made me look, and it made it more intriguing. So all these simple things they add in such a way to make the simple seem far more interesting than probably it would be otherwise. Yeah, I really, really like this. Got to admit, I liked it better than Protection, and it's up there. What was the other one that we did? Circus something by them. Very, yes, that this and that are pretty close for me, as far as my favorite tracks that we've done by them.
Cool. Cool. Okay. Before I get into all the stuff, yeah, the risk of repeating myself in the notes I've made. Hello, mate. Um, yeah, the reason I picked this is because I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is the first Massive Attack song I ever heard.
Oh,
It's either
really?
this or Unfinished Symphony. There would have been almost at the same time. But I do know when I got the album, it's the opening track. So it's definitely the first one I heard when I heard the album. And this is what sold the band to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And 1991, nothing like this. And it was a the birth of a new genre. But not just that, there's trip hop stuff, but also it just opened up electronica. Because of like the hip hop beats you had before were all very sparse. Even as they started sampling, it was very sort of almost mechanical in a way. And then this you spoke about it when you were talking. This for me is urban, nocturnal
Mm.
cityscape. You've got all the sounds, and you can almost picture, when there's cameras and they put it on slow exposure, and you get like a car going by, and you've got the trail lights,
Mm.
because it's on slow exposure. You're
Yeah.
almost hearing that, and then you've got the sort of dirty, yellowy amber sort of street lights, and these little other noises you hear are, I don't know, fucking foxes going through bins, or someone trying to break into somebody's car, and
Mm.
someone kicking some litter, or pulling out the wheelie bins. It's all those sort of noises of this urban landscape. And I couldn't believe it when I heard this. Really couldn't. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
you're so goddamn right about the urban nightscape of like this song, and how it feels. You called it nocturnal, and I think
yeah,
that's such a beautiful word to describe a song. You maybe not your first go-to, right? Because you describe it as sounding lovely, but nocturnal, you normally don't think of sound. But my God, this takes you there. You're absolutely right. It's like you're coming out of a subway station onto the
Yes.
terrain of the city. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you know, when you come into a big city, and like you say, hey, that's perfect, actually, you come out of a subway
Yep.
station, you get the smell of a city, and
Yeah.
you get the feel of it may even be quiet, but you get this feel of there's noise all bagged up, ready to go at you, and an atmosphere. And I think with the bass and with the synths, you get this undercurrent that this place could be dangerous, but it's also could be beautiful at the same time. And it's
Mhm.
all just, and that's just, they've done that in 10 seconds in that sort of shorthand of it makes it just fucking genius. But anyway,
Yeah.
Safe from Harm, which is that kitty there. It's the third single, and it's the opening track, as I said, from their first album, Blue Lines, which is their debut album, obviously, released in 1991. So we've done, as Andy has already referred to, some other Massive Attack reactions. I don't know if I've done a playlist, but if I haven't, there will be one by the time this drops. So you can go and check out the previous episodes where I talk more at length about the band. But just to recap, on this album, it was Grantley Daddy G Marshall, Robert 3D Denaja, Adrian Thors, better known as Tricky, and Andrew Mushroom Bells. And the album had contributions from loads of people, but in particular, two singers, Horace Andy, absolutely wonderful singer, and the very, very wonderful Shara Nelson, who's on this track. Um, so just really talk about the album and then a bit about the song. So it is regarded generally as the first ever trip hop album. Um, and it did blend elements. Some people argue this is a hip hop album. Some people say it's a dance album. It is, and it's much more. So they took things like breakbeats, sampling, rapping, but mixed it in with dub, soul, reggae, and electronica. Um, the group actually drew inspiration from certain concept albums and in various different genres as well, as we've talked about in other songs, with bands such as Pink Floyd, Public Image Limited, Billy Cobham, Wally Badarou, yes, Herbie Hancock, I do know who he is, and the wonderful Isaac Hayes, otherwise known as Chef. Um, and they recognise some of those bands actually in their sort of thanks and inspiration on the line notes. So the album was co-produced by Johnny Dollar and Cameron McVeigh, who also became their first manager. Jeff Barrow, who went on to form Portishead, was an intern and a trainee tape operator on this album. McVeigh, who's credited at the time as Booger Bear on the album, and his wife, a certain Nina Cherry, provided crucial financial support and in-kind assistance to the early careers of Massive Attack, Portishead, and Tricky during this period, even paying regular wages to them through their Cherry Bear organization. Daddy G said about making this album, "We were lazy Bristol twats. It was Nana Cherry who kicked our asses and got us into the studio. We recorded a lot at her house in her baby's room. It stank for months, and eventually we found a dirty nappy behind a radiator. I was I was still DJing, but what we were trying to do was create dance music for the head rather than the feet." I think that really sums up a lot of Massive Attack. Um, so Blue Lines was named 21st greatest album of all time in a 1997 Music of the Millennium poll conducted by HMV, Channel 4, The Guardian, and Classic FM. In the year 2000, Q magazine readers placed it at number 9 in the magazine's poll of 100 greatest British albums ever. And in 2003, the album was included in Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, and again in 2012, and again in 2020. It was also included in the book, 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. And as you
Let's
know,
see it.
I'd
Get it
like to
out.
get my copy out. There's Deborah. So if we go to the page, there is Blue Lines, right next to KLF, A White Room. KLF, KLF's going to rock you. And if we turn the page, this is the intro I like to do. Primal Scream, Scrimdelica and Teenage Fan Club as well. Fantastic stuff. Metallica. What 91's a great year, actually. And then the other way, oh, Achtung Baby and Spiderland, another great album. So there you go. Interesting stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So in terms of the critics, AllMusic called the album the first masterpiece of what were later known as trip hop. The term trip hop wasn't actually started to be used until about 94, so 3 years after this album came out. And what they said is they described it as filtering American hip hop through the lens of British club culture, a stylish sense of scene that encompassed music from rare groove to dub to dance. Enemy said after Blue Lines, the boundaries separating soul, funk, reggae, house, classical, hip hop, and space rock will be blurred forever. I think they got that spot on. Yeah, and music critic Simon Reynolds wrote that the album also marked a change in electronic and dance music, a shift towards a more interior, meditational sound. The songs in Blue Line ran at spliff tempos, from a mellow moonwalking 90 beats a minute down to a possibly torpid 67 beats a minute. Don't get many of those in the clubs. The album only got to number 13 in the charts. And I think I've spoken about this before. It was, I remember, then withdrawn, and they had to reprint it with just Massive on it because of the Gulf War. So that probably harmed sales a little bit. But it has gone on to become a double platinum selling album. So it's done all right at the end. So the song itself, Safe from Harm. The bass, guitar, and drums are sampled from the song Stratus by Billy Cobham. Additional drums were sampled from Good Old Music by Funkadelic. Other samples come from Herbie Hancock's Chameleon, and some of the background vocals are based on Johnny Guitar Watson's 1961 song Looking Back. I haven't a clue what that sounds like. But I'm sure it's all good stuff. Melody Maker describes Safe from Harm as a swooning, sultry cut gathered around a deep, dense, dubesque bass line, while ethereal strings and gently gliding pianos taunt Shara Nelson's sweet voice. It's a decadent, mesmeric, trance-inducing sound, one to lose yourself in completely.
Yeah.
And I will say this, the sort of classic of the album is Unfinished Sympathy. Okay, it was voted in a massive poll as the 63rd greatest song of all time in this country. So it's really up there. I prefer this track. Unpopular, but there you go. And I think this, the other one's great, don't get me wrong, and I love it as well. I just like this a bit more. And I think this is the first indication of what they could achieve with their mastery in production, which I think they reached the zenith of and Mezzanine. And the way they create this sound, I think, this is just the first album, the beginnings of it, but it's just an amazing beginning. So I'll just go through the lyrics. He does invent a couple of words here which don't exist in the English language, but anyway, well, you'll soon find out. So, midnight rockers, city slickers, gunmen, and maniacs all will feature on the Freak Show, but I can't do nothing about that. No. But if you hurt what's mine, I sure as hell retaliate. And then 3D sings, Terrius, infectious and dangerous. You can free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight. You can free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight. And then you get that riff, down now, and then in comes 3D. Terrius, infectious and dangerous. Friends and enemies find it's contagious. I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see me looking back at you. And then it riff again. And then back comes Shara. Lucky dippers, crazy chances, seems to be moving fast. Whatever happened to the niceties of my childhood days? Well, I can't do nothing about that. No. But if you hurt what's mine, I'll sure as hell retaliate. I was looking back to see if I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see me looking back at you. You can free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight. You can free the world, you can free my mind, just as long as my baby's safe from harm tonight. And then back comes in with the same thing, 3D. Terrius, infectious and dangerous. Friends and enemies, I find it's contagious and they're spreading through your system like a virus. Yes, the trouble in the end, it makes you anxious. I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see me looking back at you. I was looking back at me to see you looking back at me to see me looking back at you. But if you hurt what's mine, I'm sure as hell retaliate. You can free the world, you can free my mind. Just as long as my baby's safe from home tonight, you can free the world, you can free my mind. Just as long as my baby's safe from home tonight. So yeah, I think it's just an awesome song. It's really interesting. Again, this is the charm of Massive Attack. It is not a immediately catchy, hummable song, although there are elements of it that get stuck in your head. But it's the overall feeling, and it's like putting on a VR helmet and you're suddenly in their world. And that's the beauty, I think, rather than, something that you're going to whistle all day long. In the liner notes that I spoke about earlier, it names inspired by, and then amongst others, and some that I already mentioned, it also mentions Martin Scorsese, Body Double, as in the Brian De Palma film, Taxi Driver, Dog Day Afternoon, Celine Lumet, Blood Simple, the Coen Brothers' first film, and Inflammable Material, which is a Stiff Little Fingers album. And I think they took the symbol of the sort of warning sign from their album from the cover of that album. So there you go. That is A Massive Attack, Safe from Harm.
Yeah, those lyrics are interesting. They almost go with this motif of being like thrust into or finding yourself in the middle of a big city you've never been before, right? Because there's like this hope that you could find something or have your life changed by being in this new place with all this opportunity, but there's also this unease and want to make sure that you and your loved ones are protected and safe in this new wild environment. I don't know, it just kind of, I hearkened to what you had mentioned. It made you think of when you heard it and how that kind of like matriculated to my experience as well. And now these lyrics that kind of go hand in hand with that mood or feeling. It's just really, really fucking cool. And it's just a great, great song, man.
It is. And I think the beauty as well is you've got these two elements. So you've got her voice, which is a gorgeous but strong female voice. So you have no doubt when she sings, but if you heard what's mine, I'll sure as hell retaliate. You
Yeah.
believe it when she sings that. There is a strength there as well as a beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And his sort of, as you say, spoken rapping part, it's almost like the way he's saying it is, I don't know, I don't know if it's clinical, like someone's diagnosing you or something like that. It's just a weird angle to it, but anyway.
Yeah.
It's a cool song, and that's the end of it. So I should wrap things up and say thanks so much for listening to this, Andy, and in the Massive Attack Lexicon. It's one of my favorites. I know it's a really early track, but it really is a belter. Folks out there, tell us what you think. There must be fans of Massive Attack, I'm sure. What do you think of this track? The very wonderful Blue Lines as well, real game changer in terms of albums, I think. Drop some comments, hit the like button. It's the only way that we know that you like this. Apart from calling around and telling us, which would be creepy. So yeah, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. As we are doing this episode, which is naturally a few days before we drop it because we have to edit it, we've just hit 900 subscribers, which we were very, very pleased with. So yeah, more the merrier. Keep on going, because I think it's like a snowball. As we build more and more, we get more and more attention. We get lots of cool things happening. Another member from another band that we reviewed recently dropped a line in, which the chance of that happening a year ago was 0, but that's really cool. So yeah, please do. We really appreciate everyone who does support the channel. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.